The girl that herds the sun disappeared with her sun ship, and darkness soon surged forth and swallowed the lands. What was the patriarch of Sun Herd clan trying to say? Qin Mu fell into deep thoughts as darkness shrouded the lands. The dragon pillars lighted up again, and the fire basins in the city were also ignited. The temples gave off a glow when night fell. The jade pendant on his chest also gave off a faint glow. From the words of the Sun Herd clan, the jade pendant should be from Carefree Village, and he should also be from Carefree Village. However, on the maps of Great Ruins, there are no records of Carefree Village. It was like this place didn't exist in Great Ruins. Where exactly is Carefree Village? Why would Carefree Village only appear when darkness descends? He stared blankly at the darkness outside Great Ruins. He wanted to enter the darkness to search for that Carefree Village, but the areas shrouded by darkness were so vast. Who knew where the vague Carefree Village lies? Furthermore, how can he travel safely through this mysterious darkness? The darkness was so dangerous. The little jade pendant was not enough to protect him. Treasures like the stone statue, on the other hand, were too heavy. Carrying a statue was like carrying a god. He couldn't do it. Will my parents be at Carefree Village? Qin Mu's determination declined. Standing on the dragon's head of the dragon pillar, he raised his head, seemingly trying to touch the thick darkness outside. With the darkness surging outside the city, there seemed to be a thin membrane separating the light from the darkness. A huge hand appeared on the membrane as if it wanted to touch his hand. Qin Mu raised his head and saw the two hands going closer and closer to each other. Whispers came from the darkness. It was like numerous gentle voices whispering to him, persuading him to enter the darkness and embrace it. The whispers grew louder and louder, as if the voices had tunneled into his brain as they repeatedly persuaded. Qin Mu's gaze became hazy, and the two hands were close to pressing against each other. Gradually, the darkness in front of him was no longer darkness but a grand world. He saw a world inside like a mist or a water mirror, where a woman was stretching out her hand from a distance, trying to touch his hand. The woman's face was blurry, and he wanted to see it clearly, but he couldn't no matter what. The jade pendant in front of his chest slowly floated upwards, and as if it was trying to float into the world in the darkness. "Mu'er, what are you doing?" A startled and angry voice came from Qin Mu's back, and Qin Mu pulled back his hand. Death appeared behind him and startled him back to his senses. Qin Mu woke up from his trance and immediately pulled back his hand, breaking out in cold sweat. If he really touched the hand in the darkness, what would happen? Every person who had landed in the darkness died horribly, so would he have been eaten by the monsters in the darkness? The huge hand in the darkness also pulled back and disappeared. The phenomenon in the darkness also vanished. In Qin Mu's absent mind, he seemed to hear a sigh coming from the darkness, but Def apparently didn't notice anything. Def erupted in anger and pulled him away, scolding him furiously. "There are devils in the darkness that is good at bewitching the heart of people. Be careful not to be abducted." Devils that bewitch the heart of people? Only now did Qin Mu feel fear after the event. He hid his jade pendant back into his shirt as if he was hiding his thoughts together with the jade pendant, and thought to himself, "The day will come when I walk in the darkness to search for the source of darkness and find Carefree Village." "Grandpa Def, what exactly was that in the darkness? Why could I suddenly see the things in the darkness?" Qin Mu pondered for a while before asking. "The dark realm lies in the darkness." Def continued. "Village chief knows the best about things in dark realm, as he had been there before. Let us move to City Lord's manor. Village chief is also there, so let him explain it to you." Qin Mu's heart trembled. Village chief had been to the world in the darkness? Village chief was actually so powerful to survive even after going into the darkness? "Mu'er, you actually saw the world in the darkness?" In City Lord's manor, everyone in disabled elderly village gathered together. Granny C was still wearing Fu Yundi's skin. Apothecary, mute, old ma, deaf, blind, cripple, butcher were all here and listening to what Qin Mu had encountered on board Sun ship and the hand in the darkness. Village chief was incessantly astonished. "I indeed have been to the world in the darkness. When I came to Great Ruins, all my hopes turned to dust and my heart died when my ambitions had no fruition, yet I was unable to die." He gave a bitter smile. However, the rest of the villagers in disabled elderly village all knew this feeling. They all had the courage to meet death, yet they couldn't die. This was because they all still had responsibilities lying on their own shoulders and they haven't passed on to others. Back then I was lying on the edge of life and death, wanting to end my life time and time again. One time, I couldn't resist the temptation of the devils and entered the darkness. Village chief recalled with a serene expression. I thought I was definitely going to die when I entered, but I was too strong. So strong that the darkness couldn't kill me in a short time. This sentence would make others think that he was boasting, but the villagers of disabled elderly village didn't have this kind of thoughts. When village chief said he was too strong, he really was too strong. What kind of terror was the darkness? Everyone in disabled elderly village was the finest experts in this world, but other than village chief, no one else would dare say they could enter the darkness and not die. Village chief continued. I walked in the darkness frantically, screaming towards the monsters and devils in the darkness, begging for death. However, at that moment the darkness in my eyes gradually faded and I saw the world in the darkness. It was a world that overlaps with great ruins, but it was a different world. It was a strange world that was peeled off from the darkness all of a sudden. Everyone's heart shuddered. There was really such a world? How does the world in the darkness look like? Even the darkness had faded then. There was still something like the fog that shrouded everything in front of my eyes, making me unable to see too far. The warped figures cleared my mind, making me able to see them but not clearly. They were all very strong and even stronger than me. They waved to me, seemingly trying to invite me over. However, thinking of the responsibilities I was still carrying, I couldn't die there and retreated back out of the darkness. Village chief continued solemnly. After that, I tried to enter the darkness again to search for the world hidden in the darkness, but I couldn't find it anymore. The world that Moore saw should be the world I saw. I refer to the world in the darkness as Dark Realm and the world we are in as Light Realm. Light and dark correspond and alternate with each other. During the day, the Light Realm dominates, and when the night falls, the Dark Realm dominates. Moore, the Sun Guardian of the Sun Herd clan, told you that you might be from Carefree Village, and Carefree Village sometimes appear in the darkness. Chinmu nodded. Everyone looked at one another while Apothecary smiled. Moore, go back to rest first. Eternal Peace Empire has just retreated, and there are still crooks mixed in with the honest folks. We'll have to be on night watch. Chinmu understood and left the City Lord's manor, returning to the inn to have a rest. In City Lord's manor, village chief, apothecary, cripple, mute, Granny C and the rest had a grave expression. After some time, Cripple chuckled. The child we raised just might have been born in Dark Realm, a devil of the darkness world. Def's iron ears twitched and sighed. We should have suspected so when he suddenly appeared in the darkness back then. If it was the child of an ordinary family, he would have died in that situation, yet he was still able to survive in the darkness. What do you think, Mute? Mute gave a few ahs and Def sneered. Not of our race, the heart is certainly different. Do not speak for him. Def, you're too extreme. Apothecary solemnly said. Moore's jade pendant might be from Carefree Village and he might not necessarily be. Furthermore, so what if he is from Carefree Village? No one has been to Carefree Village before, and it might not belong to the Dark Realm and be evil. Furthermore, not only devil resides in Dark Realm. There might be other possibilities to Moore's birth. Granny C sneered. So what if Moore is a little devil from Dark Realm? He is our child that we endured all sorts of hardship to raise. He is our flesh and blood. Cripple retorted angrily. Granny, you are being unreasonable now. Unreasonable? Damned Cripple, are you think of killing Moore then? The few people argued here and there. Old Ma, who was silent all this time, suddenly said, We are the ones who brought Moore up. We are also the ones who taught him. If we are devils, we would have brought up a devil. What kind of person are we to determine how he would be raised? Everyone became silent. Old Ma always had little to say, but every word he said were significantly important. Old Ma is right. Old Ma was the one Cripple respected the most, therefore he nodded his head. I've worried too much. What do you think, Def? Def looked at Mute as he was the closest with Mute. Mute's rosy red face that was roasted by the furnace revealed a smile as he gave some ahs. Def replied, I know you're not a bad guy, I also feel that I'm not bad neither. If Chinmu does become a devil, we'll have to blame them. Other than us, the rest of them in the village aren't any good. Granny C became angry. Damned bookworm, are you discriminating those that are cultivating the devil path? Def sneered and plucked out his iron ears, indicating that he didn't want to pay attention to them anymore. Village chief got a headache and said, "We're all from the same village, so the less said, the better." Def, put your ears back, it actually quite scary. Def stabbed his ears back with a plop and village chief continued, "I was thinking of bringing Moore to Dark Realm and have a look if there's a carefree village there." Everyone jumped in shock. Village chief smiled. "Don't worry, when I first entered Dark Realm, it was 400 years ago. I have also improved in the past 400 years. Let me have some time to make preparations and then bring Moore around the darkness." Early next morning, Ling Yuxiu came to the inn to look for Qin Mu and bid goodbye. She was still the same, using her beautiful hair at the sides to make her face look thinner. Sitting next to Qin Mu, she ordered a pot of green tea and had a clear gaze. Great Ruins is a place of poverty and is not suitable for prolonged stay. The world that you can only see here is a desolate place. Only by walking out of Great Ruins could you experience the vastness of the outside world. Outside, the spells and divine arts see new developments every day as Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor, and the Emperor establish a new generation of great aspirations and abilities. The spells and divine arts of Eternal Peace Empire is currently going through a great transformation. You have the guts and the potential, therefore, I don't want you to be tarried in such a remote and desolate place. I may be a woman, but I also would like to achieve great things. If you are willing to leave with me, we can depart today." Qin Mu was stumped for words. Should he follow this girl to Eternal Peace Empire? He actually really wanted to go out of Great Ruins to experience the outside world. Great Ruins was too dangerous, and with his current ability, it was basically impossible for him to explore Great Ruins. Even existences like Village Chief had never explored the entire Great Ruins. What he need now was an experience. The people outside of Great Ruins came into Great Ruins for experience, however. He wanted to go out of Great Ruins for the experience. Ling Yuxiu's invitation was very tempting to him. Even though Imperial Preceptor wanted very much to unify Great Ruins and occupy here, Qin Mu had no ill feelings against him. On the contrary, he held Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor in high esteem. For Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor to make such a great change and employ other sects for his own use to create ultimate arts together, and to promote the development of spells and divine arts. This kind of breadth of mind and talent made Qin Mu admire him. He wanted to go out to meet the new generation, and the new ultimate arts that such a peerless talent had founded. "Where do you stay?" Qin Mu asked. "The capital city," Ling Yuxiu replied. The youth pondered and smiled. "Capital city of Eternal Peace Empire? I'll definitely go there. You can return to the capital city first. I'll find you when I go there." Ling Yuxiu frowned. "You're not going with me?" Qin Mu had a headache. "My guardians have a strict rule. I have to clear their tests before I can leave home. There are 9 guardians, therefore. There are 9 tests for me to pass before I can go out for an experience." Ling Yuxiu was astonished. "Even with your ability you can't pass the test?" She felt unbelievable. With a raise of a knife, Qin Mu slew Fu Tingyue, and that was truly breathtaking. One should know that Fu Tingyue was the #1 martial arts practitioner in Border Dragon City. Even though being #1 in Border Dragon City means nothing in Eternal Peace Empire, Qin Mu's ability was considered to be outstanding in Spirit Embryo Realm. In her eyes, he had no problem entering top 10 in Eternal Peace Empire. Yet with this kind of ability, Qin Mu wasn't able to pass his guardian's test? "My family's rules are slightly stricter," Qin Mu replied ashamedly. "I have to pass 9 tests before I'm considered an adult, but I've yet to clear even one. In that case, I'll be waiting at the capital city for you." "That's right, there are inspection mirrors guarding at the borders. If you pass by the borders, you need to be careful." Ling Yuxiu stood up and was about to walk out, but she suddenly halted, giving a smile that was yet not a smile. "I've given you a handkerchief, so shouldn't you give me something back?" Qin Mu immediately searched his body and couldn't find anything of value to give as a gift. Thinking for a moment, he took down his big iron hammer and gave it to her. Ling Yuxiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Biting her red lips, she asked, "You're giving a girl a big iron hammer?" Qin Mu scratched his head and took down his pig slaughtering knife, bamboo cane, brush and ink, and a pouch of dragon coins, mumbling, "Choose anyone you like." "Forget it. I'll take the big iron hammer then." Ling Yuxiu got a headache and carried the big iron hammer out of the inn. Outside the inn, Numerous divine arts practitioners stood at both sides of the door. Qin Feiyue was pulling onto a steed while standing there. When he saw Ling Yuxiu walking out, he looked peculiarly at the iron hammer in her hands. Even though there was doubt in his heart, he didn't ask questions and immediately said, "The preparations for the ship are done. May 7th young 7th princess get on the horse." Ling Yuxiu flipped her body up the horse. Looking at Qin Mu, who was flabbergasted in the inn, she winked at him and spat out her tongue. Qin Mu startled blankly and stuttered, "Why you? I'm the fatty 7th young master who you've described as chubby. Cowherd. Let us meet again in the capital city." Ling Yuxiu giggled. Her voice was clear and loud like a bell. With a hand holding onto the big iron hammer, her other hand was cracking the horsewhip. Qin Mu was stunned as he grabbed the fragrant handkerchief in his hand, unable to say anything. Qin Feiyue waved his hand and numerous divine arts practitioners of eternal peace caught up Ling Yuxiu in quick steps. He then glanced toward the inn before going into the inn and sat down in front of Qin Mu. Looking straight at Qin Mu with a bright gaze, he asked, "Your surname is Qin?" Qin Mu composed himself and suppressed the shock from knowing that Ling Yuxiu was the fatty 7th young master who's chubby. Nodding his head, he replied, "General's surname is also Qin. I've heard other people refer to you as Little General Qin. In this vast world, there are many people with the surname Qin." Qin Feiyue poured tea for himself and said indifferently, "Some people have a poor fate, therefore, they are born into poverty, while others have a good fate, therefore, they are born into riches and honor. A surname Qin can't represent anything. You may have the surname Qin, but you're an abandoned person, a lowly commoner of great ruins. Little brother, don't be delusional. You are unworthy to be associated with her." Finishing his words, he finished drinking the cup of tea and left behind a gold ingot, turning around to walk out of the inn. "Little General Qin, I don't understand what you're trying to say." Qin Mu stood up and also walked out of the inn. The inn owner immediately came over and bowed. "Young master is going back?" Qin Feiyue was slightly stunned. He had thought the inn owner was calling him, but he didn't expect the inn owner to bow to Qin Mu. There's no need for formalities in front of outsiders. Qin Mu waved his hand and looked around at the vast border dragon city, at the majestic buildings and the prosperity. This place is his city. He walked towards the city lord's manor and passed by the gambling den where a crowd of burly men bowed. "Young master." Walking past the cat house, the female brothel keeper brought the girls out to bow, greeting in unison, "Young master." Walking past the bookstore, flower market, vegetable market, butcher shop, restaurant, antique store, general store, pharmacy, smithy, weapon store, people all came out and bowed to him. "Young master! Young master! Young master!" Qin Feiyue frowned. Looking at Qin Mu walking all the way to City Lord's manor, the gates of City Lord's manor opened wide and Fu Yundi walked out to welcome him while laughing heartily. At the same time, he ordered the guards at his sides. "Are all of you blind? Aren't you going to greet young master?" The divine arts practitioners guarding the door bowed and greeted loudly, "Young master! From this day on, this entire city will be our home." Fu Yundi laughed loudly and walked Qin Mu into the city lord's manor. Qin Feiyue greatly frowned. He had no idea what had gone wrong. He didn't know why Fu Yundi would be so cheerful with the person who killed his son. It was like Qin Mu was then his son and not Fu Tingyue. He had no idea how Qin Mu had latched onto the rich and powerful Fu Yundi. Uncivilized barbarian can only be king of the streets and never step his foot up the imperial court. Turning around to leave, his body suddenly shuddered when he reached the city's gates. He figured out exactly what was wrong and turned his head back to look unbelievably at the city lord's manor at the end of the street. Heavenly devil creation technique. Cult mistress. He composed himself and turned to leave. Fu Yundi had already died and got his skin stripped. The Fu Yundi in the city now is cult mistress of Heavenly Devil Cult. The owner of Border Dragon City has shifted. The divine arts practitioners under Fu Yundi should all have been changed away to the divine arts practitioners of Heavenly Devil Cult. The entire city are people from Heavenly Devil Cult. Luckily, Imperial Preceptor was stopped by the huge ship, or else. He shivered uncontrollably. Now that Cult Mistress was wearing Fu Yundi's skin, if Eternal Peace Empire's great army were to enter the city, This cult mistress only need to wreak havoc with her accomplices and destroy the dragon pillars of Border Dragon City. This way, the Eternal Peace Empire's army will be eliminated in one fell swoop, causing a great deal of damage to Eternal Peace Empire's strength, and even a setback that could lead to the ruins of Eternal Peace Empire. Looking back at Border Dragon City, the owner had changed and it was not a place where he or the Eternal Peace Empire could rebuke heaven and earth anymore. This city now belongs to the Qin. It may be the same Qin, but it was the Qin of Qin Mu and not his Qin. I can really study numerous powerful divine arts in these sculptures. In the last few days, Qin Mu hovered around the dragon pillars and the temples in Border Dragon City. During nighttime, he would either sleep in the temple or on top of the dragon pillar. When he woke up, he would observe and analyze the marvel of the sculptures in a trance. Using heaven's eyes to examine these sculptures, he analyzed the sculpture's three graces, which were the shape, aura, spirit, and pondered over the sculpture's three states, which were the essence, power, intensity. In his eyes, these divine statues were not statues but instead had different kinds of vital qi directions which possessed both a material form and an internal spirit. They had an extraordinary vigor to concentrate qi into essence, circulate qi into intensity, and form qi into power. He was still a martial arts practitioner and had yet to touch divine arts. However, his brain was already thinking of creating divine arts by following the methods used by the divine being to sculpt the divine statues. Qin Mu was observing the sculpture of a goddess stepping on the river. His vital qi started to circulate actively, and with a sudden whoosh, his vital qi transformed into flowing water and surged out from his hands, like a river with waves churning and water surging. Every slam of his palm had the sound of waves surging, and as his palms alternated at his waist, the power of Qin Mu's palm grew stronger, and suddenly with one smash, his vital qi transformed into a surging river and burst forth 12 yards, shattering a huge rock in front of the temple into pieces. This attack of his wasn't a divine art and was more like a spell, but not a spell. It was similar to battle techniques, but it wasn't battle technique. It was very strange. "Excuse me." Qin Mu bowed to the sculpture of the goddess stepping on the river before retreating out from the temple, and went to the ancient temple next door. In the ancient temple was a divine statue of a human's face with the claws of a tiger while stepping on two dragons. Qin Mu sat in front to observe this divine statue and analyze. As 3 to 5 days passed by muddle-headedly, Qin Mu managed to grasp the three graces and the three states of the statue, and his vital qi involuntarily circulated accordingly to what he was seeing. Suddenly, a radiant gold light appeared on his body, and every movement he made sounded like metals colliding with each other. His form was similar to the divine statue. Suddenly, a total of 7 golden and dazzling discs appeared around him. The edge of the discs was razor-sharp and had a weaker glow, while the golden color in the middle of the discs was the most intense. Qin Mu's body moved and used secrets of sword clutch, making the discs move as well. As the vital qi circulated, the glow in the heart of the disc grew brighter. Suddenly, Qin Mu pointed his sword to stab forward, and golden lights came out from the 7 discs. The golden lights were very fine and were like extremely thin swords made from golden threads. Chi chi chi. 7 fine swords that were like golden threads flew out in a flash and stabbed the place where his sword had pointed. Qin Mu kept his hand back and saw sword holes that had appeared on the ground. It's still not as powerful as old Ma's fist skill. Something's wrong. When did my vital qi become white tiger vital qi? Qin Mu suddenly came to the realization and was pondering over it when something strange burst out suddenly in his spirit embryo divine treasure. His spirit embryo took a deep breath and instantly absorbed all of the remaining golden light in the golden sea. Qin Mu suddenly felt the heart of his brows getting emptied out, his mind turning blank and giddy. When he regained consciousness, he discovered his spirit embryo had fallen asleep again. Wait, village chief clearly said the 3 elixirs of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique meant that the spirit embryo would awaken 3 times. Why does my spirit embryo showing signs of a 4th awakening? Qin Mu was a little bewildered. With the spirit embryo in deep sleep, he was only left with half of his cultivation, making it was slightly strenuous for him to continue maintaining his heaven's eyes. Therefore he left the ancient temple at once. "Young master, Patriarch has sent a letter to you." Just as he walked out from the temple, he saw an elder in green bowed and stood outside. He was not sure how long he had been there. The elder in green immediately came up and took out a letter from his sleeve. May young master read it personally. Devil cult patriarch has a letter for me? Qin Mu temporarily let go of the fact that his spirit embryo was having a fourth awakening. Receiving the letter, the elder in green immediately fell back as Qin Mu opened up the letter. To young cult master, it's been 3 years ever since the goodbye at Surging River. As one grows old, they become more aware of their lifespan. I'm already old and looking at my lifespan, only 7 years are left. I hope I can meet young cult master again in my living days and witness your ascension. Qin Mu closed the letter. The message meant that devil cult patriarch only has 7 more years to live, and wanted to meet him again while he is still alive, officially making Qin Mu the cult master. Ling Yuxiu wants me to find her at Eternal Peace's capital city, and devil cult patriarch also wants me to meet him. It's time for me to decide whether to stay or to leave. Qin Mu composed himself. Does he want to leave Great Ruins, leave disabled elderly village, and leave this family that had raised him? He summoned the elder in green over and said, "Pass my reply to Patriarch. In a few days' time I will leave Great Ruins and go meet him." The elder in green acknowledged and turned to leave. Qin Mu pondered for a moment and came to City Lord's Manor. At this moment, the sky was turning dark, and in City Lord's Manor, village chief and the rest were gathered together. These elderly were all wearing the new clothes that Qin Mu had personally sewn for them. Qin Mu had bought a lot of silk in the city and was making clothes for the first time. The clothes were actually quite fitting, just that the fabric Qin Mu chose was slightly garish. Therefore, as the elderly wore their new clothes, they were all like old and rich landlords who looked bright and pretty. However, this was Qin Mu's kind intention. Thus the old men were all very happy. Mu'er village chief has come out from cultivation, and is ready to bring you to Dark Realm in the darkness to search for your birthplace. Apothecary waved him over and smiled. You'll leave tonight. Qin Mu's heart pounded violently in excitement and threw the thoughts he had to the back of his head before hesitating for a moment. There are numerous dangers in the darkness, Grandpa Village Chief. No worries. Village Chief gave a warm smile. My old bones can still handle that. Mu'er, this time we are entering the darkness, therefore, you are not to leave my side. Granny, pass the great education heavenly devil scriptures to him for protection. Granny C took out a ball of thread from the little basket and gave a flick. A strand of thread flew over to Qin Mu and weaved around Qin Mu's hand, forming a glove in the short while. Qin Mu gently gripped his hand and was astonished. He couldn't feel that he was wearing a glove. Village chief ordered again. Cripple, take your emperor's disc over and let him wear it. Cripple took down a jade disc from his neck. This jade disc was like a pendant, yet not a pendant. It was as big as a palm and had strange writings on it that were continuously flowing and changing. Cripple put the jade disc on Qin Mu's neck with a pained expression. Mu'er, be absolutely careful not to lose it. This is what Grandpa Cripple got in exchange for my leg. The emperor's disc is worth one of my leg. Village chief assured. Don't worry, the emperor's disc won't be lost. Mu'er, take off your clothes. Qin Mu didn't understand the meaning of it and took off his shirt, revealing his toned body. Village chief gave a cough. Take off everything and don't wear any clothes. Granny C turned over and Qin Mu took off all his clothes, leaving the glove on his hand. Apothecary took out a fat worm with an aching heart. This cup of blood is the precious blood of a poison dragon. It wasn't easy for me to get this. The fat worm was squeezed by him and a small cup of blood was filled. Def came forward and took out his brush. Dipping the brush in blood, he started drawing on Qin Mu's back. What he drew was one of the 4 statues in disabled elderly village, the tortoiseshell elder that had a huge snake coiled around his body. When the dragon blood was used up, Def finally finished drawing the huge snake all around Qin Mu's body. The last drop of dragon blood was forced out by him on the last stroke, making the brush clean. Mu'er, you can wear back your clothes. Village chief continued. Mute. Mute the blacksmith came forward and his body tremored. Blazing flames emanated out from his body and formed a huge great furnace. The flames in the furnace seemed to have gods and devils hidden inside. Mute raised his hand and gave a hard push, making the great furnace flew to Qin Mu instantly. Qin Mu didn't feel any heat when his body contacted the great furnace that looked incomparably astonishing. The great furnace became smaller and smaller before finally vanishing into his body. Village chief continued. Old Ma. Old Ma came forward and the Buddha voice suddenly boomed out. With rays of light shining 10,000 fathoms, the dense vital chi behind him formed a great Buddha that had 10,000 fine rays at the back of his head. Rulai. This Rulai strode over, becoming smaller and smaller before disappearing into the heart of Qin Mu's brows, vanishing without a trace. Blind, it's your turn, village chief said again. Blind lifted up his bamboo cane and tapped it on Qin Mu's heart, giving a low shout. Eyes awaken. Qin Mu's body trembled violently and felt boundless vital qi rushing from his heart to both his eyes. With a few thrums, 9 pupil rings instantly appeared in his eyes. Heaven's eyes, green heaven's eyes, cyan heaven's eyes, cinnabar heaven's eyes, bright heaven's eyes, jade heaven's eyes, white heaven's eyes, violet heaven's eyes, fire heaven's eyes. The 9 heavens of God eyes opened up one after another. Qin Mu instantly felt that the world in his eyes was deconstructed layer after layer and reconstructed layer after layer. It was as if his eyes could see through everything. This was Blind using his own cultivation to help him awaken his eyes. Even though it wasn't Qin Mu who awakened these eyes personally, the effects of the 9 heavens of God eyes were not any weaker. The world he was seeing now was completely different from what he normally sees. This was the world under the state of God eyes. Village chief's body floated up and hovered 3 feet off the ground. He then smiled. Now this should be enough. Muer? Follow me, we shall go visit Dark Realm. Granny C opened her mouth wanting to say something, but she didn't stop them from going. Muer, be careful. If you meet any danger, just abandon Village Chief, that damned old man, and run back on your own. Village Chief was brimming with confidence as he brought Qin Mu and floated out of the city, laughing loudly. Don't worry, Granny C, I'll definitely bring him back safe and sound. In front of the city gates and facing the boundless darkness, Qin Mu couldn't help but feel anxious. The darkness that could kill anyone it touches was right in front of him, gently pulsating like a living thing. The darkness was warded off by the glow given off by the dragon pillars and the temples in the city plaza. He was about to enter the darkness. Behind him, Granny C, Old Ma, Cripple and the rest were much more anxious than him. As the city gates creaked open, it was like their hearts were being gripped. 7 tremors sounded out from Village Chief's body. It was as if 7 treasure vaults were blown open in his body, making his aura suddenly extremely violent. Imposing and divine as he floated towards the darkness, he said, "Let us go, Muer." Qin Mu immediately followed him and looked at Village Chief with his 9 heavens God eyes. He couldn't help but be shocked when he didn't see a limbless village chief but saw an imposing god instead. At this moment, in his eyes, Village Chief was a god with robust limbs who was similar to the gods he saw in the temples. The only difference would be that Village Chief was a living god, and the gods in the temples were just sculpted out. I knew the old man was still himself. Blind propped himself on his cane and sighed. Old man is still much more powerful than us. Mute nodded his head repeatedly in deep agreement. Mute's right. Deaf approved. It's just that we don't know how long the old man can last. If he can't last long enough, both of them are going to die. Granny immediately spat twice. Pooh-pooh. Touch wood. May luck be with them. In the darkness, the jade pendant on Qin Mu's chest lit up while the youth carefully followed Village Chief, who was floating forward in the darkness. Turning back to have a look, Border Dragon City was like a city of 100 gods in the darkness. There were huge dragons on the city walls and huge gods standing upright in the city, guarding that piece of land to prevent the darkness from getting close. Village Chief. He suddenly remembered something and immediately said, "My spirit embryo went into a slumber again." Village Chief's figure stumbled and the light flames blazing around his body almost extinguished. He immediately stabilized his state of mind and asked, "Muer, you haven't told any of those old fellows, right?" At the instant when his state of mind wavered, strange devil voices came from the darkness. It was as if the devils in the darkness were whispering to each other, trying to take advantage of the opportunity when the light flames extinguished to break in. Qin Mu looked cautiously at his surrounding and shook his head. "I didn't have time to tell Granny and the rest." Village Chief, didn't you say each awakening is 1 elixir of Overlord Body 3 elixir technique? I had already awakened 3 times and awakened my 3 elixirs. Now that my spirit embryo is asleep again, it would be the 4th awakening when it wakes up again. Did something go wrong when I was cultivating? Village Chief sighed of relief and smiled. This is a good thing. The 3 in Overlord Body 3 elixir technique isn't the 3 in 1 2 3 4. The path produced 1, 1 produced 2, 2 produced 3 and 3 produced all things. The 3 in Overlord Body is the 3 and 3 produced all things. Therefore there are possibilities of awakening multiple times. Qin Mu suddenly saw the light and exclaimed in admiration, "Village Chief is wise." Sweats rolled off from Village Chief's forehead as he exclaimed to himself, "I sure am quick-witted." After that explanation, no matter how many times Qin Mu awaken in the future, it will be easy for me to explain. The little fellow is easy to fool, but it would be harder for those old fellows in the village to believe me. Luckily they don't know about this yet. However, Qin Mu didn't feel that there would be a fifth awakening as all the golden light in the Golden Sea were absorbed by his spirit embryo. The darkness was thick, and as they went deeper into the darkness around them turned denser and denser. It was different from what Qin Mu had seen previously. Previously, when he had stretched out his hand, the darkness actually faded and Dark Realm appeared along with the woman stretching her hand towards him. Whereas now the darkness was getting darker and darker instead. Other than the places illuminated by Village Chief's light flames, he couldn't see anywhere else. Suddenly the light screen violently tremored, as if there was some huge monster crashing into the light screen. Qin Mu immediately took a look and his scalp turned numb. He saw a huge shadow trying to tear apart the light emanated from Village Chief. Swish! Among Village Chief's hair, a sword light flashed out and flew into the darkness. The huge shadow warped and flickered around like a phantom before fading away, seemingly retreating back into the darkness. The sword light flew back and Village Chief had a solemn expression. A drop of blood gently slid off the sword light and hung on the tip of the sword light. Qin Mu raised his hand to get ready to retrieve this drop of blood when Village hurriedly shook his head and said, "Don't touch it." Ding! The drop of blood landed on the ground and gave off the sound of when a metal collides with a rock. What followed it was the withering and drying of every single surrounding vegetation. Following Village Chief forward, only after 300 yards did they leave the area affected by the devil properties of that blood. He couldn't help but be overwhelmed with shock. Just now that dark monster's ability is extremely strong, and is not any weaker than me. Village Chief had a grave expression as he looked around him. He could faintly see shadows creeping around him, moving and changing irregularly. There seemed to be countless of monsters hiding around them. That drop of blood is the blood of the devil god. If you touched the blood just now, the god statue that Death painted on your would have been tainted and would be unusable. Muir, you have floated down from upstream, so we'll move upstream along Surging River. Not long after, they reached the side of Surging River. Village Chief floated on top of the river surface while Qin Mu followed him by stepping on the river. Looking around, Qin Mu could still see shadows continuously moving and peculiar whispers sounding out time and time again. It was as if the devils in the darkness were discussing how to eat them, making his blood run cold. However, with Village Chief by his side, he felt much more secure. Village Chief said, "Let us go to the end of Surging River. We'll have to sprint about 2,000 miles and your speed is too slow. Let me carry you." Qin Mu suddenly felt his body turning light and floating up like a goose feather. The light flames around Village Chief suddenly blazed brightly. Within the divine light, his body started to become more and more imposing, just like a giant who's able to support both heaven and earth, taking wide strides towards upstream of Surging River. Qin Mu was dumbstruck. This kind of speed was simply as fast as lightning. In his days, they passed by 1,000 mountains and waters in a flash. If he used his naked eyes to look at Village Chief was still limbless. However, using 9 heavens god eyes to look, Village Chief had robust limbs and was glorious like gods. The two different forms existed simultaneously. In that case, does the Village Chief have limbs or no limbs? He was slightly befuddled. As they moved, they passed by countless mountains and traveled countless miles. The surface of Surging River was becoming narrower, which obviously meant that they were getting closer to the source of Surging River. Along the way, Qin Mu saw numerous sights he couldn't see normally. He saw giants towering along the coastal area emanating divine light like torches. They were the stone statues on both sides of Surging River. In the morning they were ordinary stone statues, and when at night, his naked eyes could only see stone statues giving off light, but with his god eyes, he could see another world. Other than these villages, There were also ancient ruins on both sides of surging river. The divine light there was like daytime, and Qin even saw living giants moving in the ruins. Are there living gods and devils? He was stunned. Other than the giant moving in the ruins, he saw even stranger stuff. In the darkness, there were behemoths, which only appeared in legends, hunting for food. The divine beast that was as big as mountains fought with monsters in the darkness, shattering mountains and rending the earth. These divine beasts had divine light all around their bodies and were like fire torches in the darkness. Tonight he saw a totally different great ruins. An epic world that was like a fairy tale. Back when Granny Sea picked Qin up from the water, they could deduce that Qin and the woman in the water had floated down from upstream. Now that they were reaching the source of surging river, if they still can't find Carefree Village there, they could only return. Great Ruins was too big and too dangerous. They couldn't search the entire Great Ruins in just one night. At this moment, Village Chief suddenly halted. Qin immediately stabilized himself and was about to say something when his hair uncontrollably stood on their ends. He immediately shut up and even stopped breathing. In front of them was a huge army marching deep into Great Ruins. The soldiers of this army were tall and majestic, just like gods and devils that were shining radiantly. However, their face was ashen with lifeless eyes and had tusks jutting out from their mouth, even though their aura was extremely terrifying. These gods and devils were clearly corpses. Some of them were missing arms and some were missing legs. Some had half of their head left while others had a huge hole opened up in their chest. The weapons in their hand were also badly damaged. Now the great army formed by the corpses of gods and devils hurried on through the forest and crossed the river. There were also ancient bronze war chariots in the army. The war chariots were battered and the war flag hung on them were also full of holes. Bronze warships which also sailed from far away. These bronze warships were also extremely worn out and had huge holes on the sides of the ship. The masts of the ship had also collapsed. Qin didn't dare to breathe, and even Village Chief held his breath as he quietly looked at this strange army troops. When this army of corpses had crossed surging river, Qin then panted heavily. Village Chief also let out a murky breath with his flickering gaze. Let us follow and have a look. After he finished speaking, he floated towards the army of corpses. Suddenly, the sound of slaughter that shook the sky came from the front and terrifying pulses traveled over. Village Chief brought Qin to the peak of a mountain, and both of them were shocked at what they saw. They could only see the badly damaged corpses of gods and devils fighting a war. The ones they were fighting were also corpses that were wielding all kinds of weapons and were giving off extremely intense glow which shone onto the valley, lighting it up like it was daytime. This is the ancient battlefield of gods and devils. Village Chief had a slight change in expression and immediately pulled Qin back while solemnly saying, I have come to the ancient battleground of gods and devils in the day once, and it was very dangerous that I almost couldn't make it out alive. In the day, not one corpse of gods and devils could be seen. It's only when the darkness surged over will the corpse revive and march into the battlefield for war. Qin was stumped for words. What kind of hatred did they have for each other for these gods and devils to still continue to fight after their deaths? Muir, be careful. We are deep in Great Ruins now, do not wander away. Village Chief very solemnly said. As they continued to head up the river, only 30 miles was left until the source of surging river. However, stranger things were happening. Qin saw bright lights in front that was illuminating the darkness. There was a village and the lights were very eye-catching in the darkness. In the village, there was an elder pasting and binding paper ship. Each time a paper boat was finished, it would automatically fly out of the village and berth in the riverside. In the river, men and women who were dripping wet would board the boat, and the paper boat would float towards the heart of the river where the dense fog was and disappear into the dense fog. Those are the messengers of death, Village Chief whispered. They appear at night to extradite the people that died in the river. Do not alarm them. Messengers of death? Qin was curious and gave a few more looks at the elder. The elder's face was blurry as if there was a veil covering his face. Qin was unable to see his looks. The elder in the village seemed to notice as he raised his head to look at Qin. Qin blood ran cold and felt his soul wavering. It was as if it was trying to fly out of his body. However, at this moment, a booming Buddha voice came from the heart of his brows. The Rulai imprint the old Ma placed in the heart of his brow shone brightly and blocked the gaze of the elder. Living being goes no further. An indistinct voice traveled over as the elder lowered his head and continued to paste his paper ship. Village chief said prudently, Muir, don't meddle with the world after death. The world after death? Qin Mu was stunned and asked, We are clearly in great ruins and this isn't the world after death. Why does village chief say so? There are many peculiar places in great ruins that are linked to different worlds. That little village is the place linked the world after death, and our real world. Village chief replied, Not only great ruins have this kind of places, there are also similar places outside of great ruins. If you leave great ruins and meet such a village and such an elder, do not get involved with them. If you don't provoke them, they will not meddle with the real world. However, they are very knowledgeable and you can ask them for directions. Brother, may I ask how to go to Carefree Village? The elder raised a finger and pointed towards the darkness. You can't go to the real Carefree Village. Village chief gave his thanks and they continued to move forward. Not knowing how far they had walked, the jade pendant on Qin Mu's chest suddenly floated up and pointed forward. Qin Mu's heart stirred slightly. Village chief. Village chief turned back and saw this scene before nodding his head gently. Qin Mu took down the jade pendant and hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he let go of his hand. The jade pendant floated upwards and flew forward. Village chief immediately brought Qin Mu along to follow the pendant. The floating speed of the jade pendant grew faster and faster, as if it was a shooting star that was piercing through the darkness. Qin Mu and village chief quickly caught up and suddenly heard a plop sound. It sounded like a little ball dropping into the river, when the jade pendant had collided with an invisible membrane and created ripples in the air. In front of Qin Mu and village chief, there seemed to be a strange world that was slowly opening up with those ripples. In front of them was a vast land shrouded by fog which had towering mountains. The land was hidden deep in the darkness, overlapping with the darkness that was not exactly darkness. There's really another world in the darkness. Village chief brought Qin Mu along to catch up as he stretched his arm to grab the jade pendant, unable to concentrate. Is this where Carefree Village is? Will my parents be here? The jade pendant was still trembling in his hand as if it wanted to fly to its owner's location. Qin Mu wore the jade pendant back on his neck and used the jade pendant to lead the way. Village chief immediately blocked him and said calmly, Moore, since we are already here, there's no need to rush. We should take things step by step. There is something weird. Qin Mu calmed himself down and walked forward. The mountain range here was elegant, but they were covered by gray fog, making them look blurry. Is this really Carefree Village? Didn't the messenger of death said they wouldn't find Carefree Village? The gray fog in front made the mountains faintly discernible. Suddenly a crisp crack sounded below Qin Mu's feet and a voice came out. Ow, you hurt me. Qin Mu jumped in shock and immediately looked down. He saw a skeleton hand pulling itself out below his feet and a skull popped out from the fog, looking at him with its empty eye sockets. Human. The skeleton gave a piercing scream which reverberated in this hazy gray world. Qin Mu immediately moved back one step and another crack sounded beneath his feet. Only now did he see the countless skeletons on the ground. There were innumerable bones accumulated and piled up together, unaware of how deep it was. The 9 heavens in his eyes revolved as he looked towards the mountains and shivered uncontrollably. The mountains in the fog were built by countless of bones. These bones formed piles and piles of mountains while being hidden in the fog. Qin Mu's hair stood on their ends as the bones on the ground stood up one by one. Skeletons swayed as they stood up in the hazy gray fog and all kinds of distorted voice reverberated in the fog. Human? Where's the human? It's been very long since a human came by. Which human could make his way here? They have flesh, we have no flesh, steal their flesh. Village chief frowned as he looked afar. The mountains far away were also tremoring and the mountains stood up and strode over like a monster formed by innumerable white bones. As the white bone mountains walked over, there were also countless of skeletons dancing around and climbing the mountain, making these white bones behemoths bigger and bigger. These bones still had the might of gods and devils, which clearly meant that they were the bones of gods and devils. The noisy voices of the skeletons were loud and chaotic, as they kept shrieking to eat the humans who had made their way here. Where did so many dried bones come from? Village chief also couldn't help but to rant and rave. A few small skeletons that were only 3 feet dashed out from the gray fog and grabbed onto Qin Mu's leg to bite. Qin Mu shattered them with a palm, but even more skeletons clattered as they sprinted over. It was like a huge wave in the big sea. Very intimidating. Village Chief's vital chi flowed out and transformed into sword lights, but there were simply too many skeletons here. Even he was having a headache, especially towards the bones of gods and devils, as they were even harder to deal with. However, at this moment, light blossomed from the heart of Qin Mu's brow, and the apparition of a great Buddha appeared behind them to keep watch. Countless of skeletons instantly screamed and escaped in all directions. Numerous skeletons gathered together while escaping and turned into sprinting giants. Some giants tripped and turned into countless of skeletons running away as they landed on the ground. As they ran and ran, they gathered together again and formed a skeletal giant. Qin Mu sighed of relief. The apparition of the great Buddha left in the heart of his brows indeed had an effect on those strange skeletons, making them not dare to come near. The skeleton mountains far away also halted and looked from afar. Seeing the great Buddha behind Qin Mu, they dared not come near. The undulating billows of gray fog made the fog between the mountains look like a sea of fog. Suddenly, there was light shining over, and Qin Mu concentrated his attention on the light. He was slightly stunned when he saw a small boat made from a leaf floated between the two mountains of bones. The small boat made from a leaf floated on the fog. At the bow of the small boat, a lantern hung on the lone mast. There were no sails and the lantern was giving off a weak glow. At the aft of the boat, a boatman wearing a tattered woven rush raincoat and a bamboo hat on his head was rowing the oars. Under the lantern sat a man who was also wearing a bamboo hat. His face couldn't be seen clearly. The small boat quickly reached in front of them, and the man under the lantern stood up. Turning around, he bowed towards the boatman and took out a gold coin. As the boatman stretched his hand out to take the gold coin, Qin Mu immediately saw that there was no flesh on the boatman's palm. Under the bamboo hat and woven rush raincoat was actually a skeleton. A skeleton rowing a boat. The man under the lantern disembarked the boat and was slightly stunned when he saw Qin Mu and village chief. He bowed and greeted with an old voice. "Brother." Qin Mu and village chief bowed and returned the greeting. "Brother." The person pressed down on his bamboo hat and walked away. Village chief suddenly said, "Hold your steps, brother." The person halted. Village chief asked, "Does brother have any spare coins?" The person gave a hoarse laughter. "You didn't bring any money and you plan to make the ghost row the boat?" Village chief gave a smile. "That's why I would like to borrow some from brother." Laughter came from under the bamboo hat. "Old sword god, it's been a while since I last saw you. There aren't many people left from our generation. It's also fate that we can meet here. Fine, I'll give you some Fingdu coins." He stretched out his palm and the few gold coins floated in his palm. With a grave expression, village chief's vital chi showed its form, growing arms and legs. He slowly stretched his hand out and grabbed towards the gold coins. As both of their hands touched each other, their bodies swayed. The man under the bamboo hat pulled back his hand and turned to leave while sighing. "You're old, but you're still slightly stronger than me. But it's good that I'm younger than you and can live slightly longer than you." Village chief sent him off with his gaze. "You're stronger than before, but you might not live longer than me." "That's hard to say." The man under the bamboo hat leaped and vanished. Village chief opened his palm and 4 gold coins landed in Qin Mu's hand. The arms and legs that were formed by his vital chi gradually turned faint as he said, "Mu, let's board the boat." Qin Mu boarded the small boat worriedly. Village chief also floated up and leaned himself on the mast. The boatman at the aft of the boat adjusted the bow of the boat and rowed the boat unhurriedly as it stably sailed towards the dense fog in the depth of the skeleton mountain. Qin Mu sat under the lantern and the jade pendant in front of his chest was giving off a weak glow. The jade pendant still wanted to float up and fly far away. This isn't Carefree Village? If not, where exactly is Carefree Village? The small boat sailed forward unhurriedly. Its speed was not too fast nor too slow. Ever since he boarded this small boat, Qin Mu noticed that those skeletons paid no attention to them, as if they couldn't see them. The skeleton mountains returned to normal and the skeletons seemed to return to death, sinking back into silence. Qin Mu shook his head as he recalled all the unimaginable encounters he had met along the way. Everything that he never imagined was actually happening, and each encounter was stranger than the previous. The monsters in the darkness, the messengers of death in the village by the river, the world in the fog, to the small boat they were taking, as well as the skeleton boatman. All these seemed so inconceivable, yet they all actually happened. Furthermore, the world in the Great Ruins darkness wasn't as simple as Village Chief had thought. Village Chief had originally thought only Dark Realm existed, but from how it looks, a simple Dark Realm couldn't entirely explain what they had seen. Dark Realm could possibly exist, and it could be possible that there were other worlds in the darkness other than Dark Realm. Village Chief, who was the man that had gave us Fengdu coins? Qin Mu turned his head to peek at the boatman and asked in a low voice. An old friend. Village Chief had an indifferent expression. I haven't seen him for a very long and I have not heard news of him. I thought he was dead, but I didn't expect him to still be alive. It's pretty impressive for people of my era to survive until now. Qin Mu's thoughts wandered far away. Village Chief's era must have a large number of heroic figures that was like an era of all-stars. Many world-shaking people must have been born then that was just as impressive as Village Chief. However, what a pity it was that time waits for no one. Even if they were peerless in their generation, they were approaching old age in their later years, leaving them with not long to live. I didn't think he was still so active and loved to run here and there. I had no idea he would run here this time. Village Chief smiled. He knows how to study more than me and have encountered much more mysteries than me. Actually, I'm envious of how free and easy he's living, being much relaxed than me. Mu, or you may meet him in the future, as he doesn't have a fixed home and love to join in the fun everywhere. His name is Ling Jing. He has a mole under his left eye, and is missing a ring finger on his right hand that was severed by me. Village Chief, where is this boat bringing us to? Qin Mu looked around and they were quite a distance away from the entrance of this strange world. He couldn't see where they came from, and didn't know where they were going if they continued to float down like this. Furthermore, who knows if this was Great Ruins? This might not even be the world the Great Ruins was in. Village Chief slightly frowned. Qin Mu's jade pendant had led them here, and it was the first time he had met such queer incident and came to such a queer place after living in Great Ruins for such a long time. However, since Qin Mu's jade pendant had brought them here, it should be related to the origin of the jade pendant. Now that they didn't know where they were and they were unable to get down the ship, they could only let the boat and the strange boatman bring them into the unknown. Mu, or if I didn't bring you out, I might never find this place at all. As he spoke, the fog in front of him turned faint and revealed a vast land. The mountains were no longer skeleton mountains, and beside the shore of the Sea of Fog, there was a dock made out of wood where only boats could berth at. The small boat made from a leaf came to a gentle stop as it reached the dock. Qin Mu immediately took out a Fengdu coin and planned to pay the boat fee when the boatman raised two white skeletal fingers. Qin Mu then took out another Fengdu coin and the boatman nodded his head. The two of them disembarked and walked towards the land. When Qin Mu turned back to have a look, he saw the small boat and the skeleton boatman had vanished in the fog. Only the lantern at the ship's bow was still giving off a weak glow in the fog. Strange place. The jade pendant on his chest gently floated up and pointed forward. Qin Mu followed Village Chief forward and didn't walk far before he saw a boundary stone which had a few writings in seal script on it. The living realm of the dead. The living shall not go further while the dead shall go forward. Qin Mu read the words on the boundary stone and the two of them were stunned. Qin Mu hesitated to ask, Village Chief, are we still going forward? Village Chief looked forward and faintly saw numerous villages. He smiled and said, Since we're already here, how can we not continue and have a look at what's in front? Let us continue on. Qin Mu followed him and both of them crossed the boundary stone. Suddenly, Qin Mu cried in astonishment. Raising both his hands had unknowingly become ghastly bones of the dead. He immediately pulled open his shirt only to see his flesh had all disappeared, leaving only ghastly white bones. Looking at Village Chief, he had also become a skeleton floating in the air. What's strange was Village Chief actually grew arms and legs. His chest and head were all white bones, but his arms and legs had blood and flesh. However, Village Chief clearly didn't have arms and legs, so why did he suddenly grow arms and legs? The living realm of the dead, living realm of the dead. Mu, let us go back. Village Chief suddenly said. Qin Mu moved back to the boundary stone and looked down to see his blood and flesh coming back. whereas village chief's arms and legs had disappeared while his head and chest had returned back to normal. I see. There's actually exists such an incredible world. Village chief smiled and walked back into the living realm of the dead. Let us go in to have a look. Qin suppressed the shock in his heart and followed him into this incredible world. Village chief's feet landed on the ground and he started walking. He suddenly stopped to look at his hands and gave a rueful sigh, as if he was recalling fondly of his missing limbs. In front, the mountain range stood tall and there were temples after temples as a decently scaled village appeared in front of their eyes. The two of them came to this village and found that there were birdsong and fragrant flowers, and the entire place was very tranquil. The villagers lived in peace and worked happily, raising livestock. When they came to the village entrance, there was still a white and plump pig snorting as it walked past them. Qin and village chief stood still at the village entrance and didn't enter, making a few of the villagers turning around to look at them with a weird gaze. After a while, an elder tottered over. His face that was filled with wrinkles gave a smile as he asked, "Visitors from outside, what can I do for you?" Qin and village chief bowed to greet and Qin asked, "Sir, may I know the way to Carefree Village?" That elder raised his hand and pointed to the back of the mountain. "After you cross these mountains and pass by a gate, you'll be able to see Carefree Village." "Much thanks." "You're welcome." Qin and village chief went up the mountain. Qin turned his head back and saw that the villagers in the village were still looking at them with peculiar gazes. Village chief explained, "In their eyes, we are the dead, therefore they are looking at us that way." Qin turned back his head and said, "Village chief, there's something strange. Grandpa Blind helped me open the 9 heavens of God eyes, so even when my eyes are not there I could still see something hazily." Village chief halted. "What did you see?" Qin replied, "The devil aura on their body." Village chief thought deeply and explained, "The living realm of the dead should have a rule that changes life and death. This is the power of gods and devil. When we entered here we seemed to have no flesh, but when we exited the living realm of the dead, our flesh reappeared immediately. This means that our flesh actually still exists, just that it was warped by the rules, therefore we can't see or touch it. Muir, since the 9 heavens of your god eyes are still there, can you use your vital chi to execute the 9 heavens of your god eyes?" Qin immediately tried and quickly sensed his eyes. He then directed his vital chi into his eyes and executed the 9 heavens god eyes formations imprinted in his eyes. He instantly felt everything in front of his eyes becoming extremely clear. He turned his head back and everyone in the village had a change in appearance. They were no longer humans and were skeletons. Even the livestock in that plump pig had turned into skeletons. The villagers' skeletons were different from human skeletons and had a strange shape that was clearly not human. Qin described what he saw and village chief pondered before replying, "They're the Heavenly Devil Horde." "Heavenly Devil Horde?" Qin stared blankly. "Heavenly Devil Horde is the devil race. Your Heavenly Devil cult may have the 2 words Heavenly Devil, but they were all still humans under name of Heavenly Devil cult. However, Heavenly Devil Horde is different. Legend says that Heavenly Devil Horde is a race that had come from a foreign land and have an extremely strong nature to invade other lands. As for where they had come from, no one knows. Some legend says." Village chief paused and didn't continue. Looking forward, he said, "Could this be the world of Heavenly Devil? Doesn't look like it. Let us continue forward. If this is the world of Heavenly Devil, we'll have to leave immediately." Crossing several mountains, they finally came before the gate which the elder in the village had talked about. With 2 mountains as pillars, there was a stone bridge on the mountain gate as a beam. Written on the mountain wall was 2 words, Fengdu. Qin heart leaped and had an ominous feeling. Legend says that Fengdu was the gate of hell. Could this be hell? However, village chief turned a blind eye to it and walked past it. Qin immediately followed, and when they saw what's in front of them, their hearts were both slightly shocked. In front of them, in the center of the squarish cities, there were lofty, majestic shrines and temples that were reaching through the clouds. There were innumerable cities, innumerable palaces, and innumerable temples. As far as the eyes could see, there was no end to the cities. This was the vast, boundless, and spectacular world behind the gates of Fengdu. This should be the capital city of Fengdu. As Qin thought about that, he suddenly saw a ruined ship. It was a ship formed by mountains, and on the ship were chains floating in the air like the strings of a kite. At the end of these kite strings were tied to a gray spheroid, an enormous spheroid which was half broken. It was a moon. Qinmu muttered. Why would moon ship be here? The ship should be moon ship, as it had similarities with sun ship. Around moon ship was dead silence, and not even a figure could be seen. This ship had collapsed and laid flat between the mountains. More than half of the waning moon hanged in the sky motionlessly, and the ship was over 40 miles away from the nearest city. The direction which the jade pendant was floating towards was the direction of moon ship. The two mysterious ships on the geographic map of Great Ruins, Sun ship and Moon ship. Qinmu and village had already seen Sun ship and had never seen Moon ship yet. This Moon ship was no smaller than Sun ship. Sun ship was like a huge volcano with legs, having peaks that were spewing fire and lava boiling. On the other hand, Moon ship was entirely silver gray in color, creeping there like a silver toad with 3 legs. To be exact, it was like a toad carrying a ship while creeping among the mountains. It was as if Moon ship was alive as the mountain slowly moved up and down like it was breathing. However, the ship's body was already in ruin and in a much worse condition than Sun ship. Sun ship had appeared in Great Ruins and returned to Sun well. So how did Moon ship appear in the living realm of the dead, and not return to Moon well? Is Carefree Village referring to Fengdu or Moon ship? Qinmu mumbled. Carefree Village, what is carefree? When one dies, they would naturally be carefree. Could Carefree Village be referring to Fengdu? Living realm of the dead. Village chief suppressed the shock in his heart. However, Carefree Village may also be referring to Moon ship. As Moon ship broke through the darkness, the people on board lived in peace, carefree and without worries. Didn't Sun Guardian told you that Carefree Village only appeared in the darkness, but he didn't know where it would appear? This means that Carefree Village is constantly moving, and if so, this could be explained if Carefree Village is in the area covered by Moon ship. Moon ship appears at night, therefore Moon ship would move at night. With Moon ship bringing Carefree Village to appear at night, the ship would be constantly moving, therefore Carefree Village would be constantly moving as well, having no fixed location. Moor. He paused before saying, this is only my guess, however, if it's true, you may be a moon herder. I'm a moon herder? Qinmu was slightly stunned, not understanding the meaning of it. If you are born in Carefree Village, you may be the descendant of moon herders. Village chief smiled. Didn't you say you met a woman stretching her hand out to you and tried to put her palm together with yours on the dragon pillar in Border Dragon City? I think that woman may be your kin or even your... He didn't continue, but Qinmu understood what he wanted to say. It might even be his mother. Back then, Moon ship must have brought Carefree Village to the outskirts of Border Dragon Village. Sun ship came in the day while Moon ship came at night. That woman must have discovered Qinmu and noticed the jade pendant on his neck, therefore, wanted to acknowledge him. However, being in such a dilapidated and desolate state, could moon herders live in this place? Furthermore, why would Moon ship appear in the living realm of the dead? Suddenly a melodious singing came from Moon ship. The gloomy voice was cold and dismal, sounding like a mother that was missing her long-lost child. When I left here, willows shed tear. I come back now, snow bends the bough. Long, long the way, hard, hard the day. My grief overflows, who knows, who knows? When Qinmu heard the song, he only felt the urge to cry, just that he didn't have any flesh, therefore, there were no tears to be shed. That song from the huge moon ship was faintly discernible, and was somewhat lonely and melancholy. The longing for her child had turned into a gloomy temperament. Looking at Moon ship, there was a good-looking woman standing at the bow of the ship in the gray fog and looking over at Qinmu. Their endless gaze of longing seemed to meet across the air. Qinmu wanted to close his eye, but he couldn't. Keeping silent for a moment, he then told Village Chief, "Village Chief, let us go back." Village Chief was slightly stunned and asked him softly, "Aren't you going up to meet her?" Qinmu shook his head and said stupefyingly, "She's not my kin and this is not Carefree Village." Village Chief's heart shuddered. What did you see with your 9 heavens god eyes opened by Blind? Even though he was powerful, Blind was still stronger than him when it came to eyes. Now that Blind had opened the 9 heavens of Qinmu's god eyes, what Qinmu could see he might not be able to see. What I see isn't a woman and is a devil god. Qinmu's gaze landed on the woman on Moon ship, and what he saw wasn't a mother longing for her child, but was a malevolent devil god with disc-shaped bone spikes on its back emanating black aura. The devil god was singing softly and seemed to be baiting him over. This wasn't a situation of meeting kin but was a scam. From the moment the jade pendant had shown on the dragon pillar in Border Dragon City, it was a scam which purpose was to bait Qinmu to enter this place. Man! Even I, an old martial wanderer, also almost fell into his trap. Village chief took a deep breath and his divine light shone bright, grabbing Qinmu to rapidly retreat back. Meanwhile, the woman on Moon's ship suddenly became berserk and frantically flew over through the air from the ship's bow. The woman whirled like a spinning top in midair, her body growing bigger and bigger. Her face also became more and more malevolent as she finally struggled free from the constraint of her skin, revealing her real body. It was a devil god that had 8 long legs, 2 heads and 5 tails. Her legs were like human arms and her feet were like human hands. She sprinted extremely fast in the air as she gave chase. Padma daily. Lotus blossomed in front of village chief and filled the sky and the ground. The apparitions of Devil Buddha sat on the lotus as they all raised their palms and unleashed their mudras at village chief. These devil Buddhas were all apparitions, however. They seemed to materialize and had a physical body. Every move from the devil Buddhas was different as the attacks came from all around village chief and Qinmu. Buddha was supposed to be sacred, yet this devil cultivated the divine arts of devils into devil Buddhas. It could be said that it had betrayed the scriptures and strayed from the path. Village chief's expression didn't change and remained calm. A sword light flew out from his finger and flashed from lotus to lotus. The sword light was so fast that Qinmu couldn't catch it with his eyes and could only see a snow-white light winding among all the lotus and devil Buddhas. The next moment, the lotus all shattered into pieces and the head of the devil Buddha exploded with a bang, turning into devil vital chi which rushed out in all directions. Sa Paramitha. The devil pounced over, and just as her voice dropped, a huge whirlpool appeared behind village chief and spun rapidly. It was like a monster that had a mouthful of razor-sharp teeth, as countless of razor-sharp blades revolved around in the whirlpool. In the whirlpool was a long rainbow bridge which was flowing rapidly into the whirlpool. Village chief and Qinmu were instantly pulled in by the whirlpool. The rainbow bridge pulled the 2 persons into the insides of the whirlpool, and countless of sharp blades came attacking from all directions, slicing as they revolved. The end of the whirlpool was like a paradise with birdsong and fragrant flowers. Everything looked so peaceful, but that was obviously where the core of this devil's killer move lay. Muir, stand on my hair. Village chief gave a shout and his hair started growing furiously. Every strand of hair was like a huge and thick pillar penetrating out from the whirlpool along the rainbow bridge. Qinmu landed on one of the strands of hair and stood there. He could only feel that the hair under his feet was swelling rapidly, becoming thicker and longer as it almost penetrated through the whirlpool. Whereas the other hairs were like the messy dance of wild snakes, as they broke the blades in the whirlpool which was coming in all directions. Countless shattered blades fell into the whirlpool, and were crushed into powder by the powerful current. Qinmu raised his head and saw the huge and malevolent face of the devil god at the entrance of the whirlpool. With her eyes sparkling slyly, she opened her mouth wide open and waited for village chief to send him into her mouth. Right at this moment, village chief's other strands of hair tunneled into the devil god's mouth and gave a forceful tug, pulling the devil god into the whirlpool as well. Muir, quickly go to the dock and board the ship to leave. Go now. The strand of hair gently flicked Qinmu out of the whirlpool, which then closed with a rumble. Village chief and the devil god had vanished. Qinmu's body dropped from the sky and he was quite a great distance from land. If he was to drop straight down, he would definitely die. He hurriedly took in a deep breath and blew out. A gust was instantly created in front of him and Qinmu's feet rapidly moved to step on the cusp of gust, slowing down his falling speed. He huffed and puffed a few times before finally landing on the ground. This was still carefree village which was saturated with gray fog, however. The darkness didn't invade here, therefore, it was still a safe place to him. Suddenly a huge whirlpool appeared above his head. For thick and long arms popped out from the whirlpool and clawed towards the sky. The malevolent devil popped his head up as she tried to crawl out of the whirlpool. However, something seemed to be grasping firmly on her legs, and she was pulled back into the whirlpool once again. Heavenly devil horde! An angry roar came from the whirlpool. As the devil god was pulled back into the whirlpool, Qinmu saw black dots spurting out from the whirlpool. Leave quickly, Muir. Village chief's voice came from the whirlpool. Go on ahead, I'll catch up to you. Quick, if the devil gods in the city are alarmed, you won't be able to escape. The whirlpool disappeared and village chief's voice was cut off. In the air, the black dots fell to the ground like shooting stars, shaking the ground from the collision. Gray fog then started to surge over, becoming thicker and thicker. When the black dots had landed on the ground, they were shrouded in fog. Therefore Qinmu couldn't see clearly what was exactly inside. The fog soon spread over to Qinmu and flooded over the youth. From the gray fog came the thumps of heavy footsteps which were like huge stones pressing down the heart. Village chief was pulled by the devil monster into the whirlpool. Would he? Qinmu had all kinds of bad thoughts. Turning back to take a look, he wasn't far from the gates of Fengdu. The fog hadn't totally flooded the gate yet, but if the fog continued to rise, he wouldn't be able to find the gate anymore. Village chief has such strong abilities, he would definitely be fine. I need to leave this place now and not to become his burden. Thump, thump, thump. The gray fog saturated the air and the footsteps in the fog were in a mess. Some came from his back and some came from his sides. There were also some blocking his way to the gates of Fengdu. Qinmu composed himself and immediately rushed towards the gates of Fengdu. As he sprinted forward rapidly, he got closer and closer to the incomparably huge mountain gates of Fengdu when suddenly a loud growl came from his front as a shadow flew towards him. Without any explanation, Qinmu stabbed his sword finger out. The fish dragon of Junior Protector sword leaped out, spitting out the treasure sword which sliced apart the gray fog and stabbed the shadow as fast as lightning. Swoosh! As the gale whistled, Junior Protector sword pushed the shadow back and with a piercing sound, the shadow collided onto a stone pillar and was nailed to death. Qinmu continued to sprint forward forcefully. As he passed by the stone pillar, his sword finger pointed backward and Junior Protector sword flew back into the fish dragon's mouth behind him. The corpse of the shadow slid down the pillar and revealed a sinister-looking mutant. It had fish scales all over its body and frog webbing on his hands and feet. The mutant's vital chi had yet dispersed and was still coiling around its body like a huge blood-stained snake. Qinmu smelt a fishy stench and suddenly felt giddy. He stumbled and knew that it was obviously a highly toxic divine art. He then felt the painting which Def had drawn on him by using dragon's blood heating up and the toxicity quickly vanished. Divine arts practitioner? I actually killed a divine arts practitioner. Qinmu was stunned and suddenly remembered when he was executing his vital chi, and used it to manipulate sword. The great furnace that Mute hid in his chest had ignited in flames and instantly raised his vital chi by 100 times. It was exactly this great furnace which had suddenly increased his vital chi to the extent where he could slay a divine art practitioner in one sword. What's even more incredible was the great furnace only suddenly increased his vital chi when he was executing it. When Qinmu kept his vital chi back, his vital chi would revert back to usual. This way there wouldn't be a huge burden on his body. It was like filling a cauldron with water. If a cauldron could only fit 3 buckets of water and 10 buckets of water were poured in, 7 buckets of water would overflow out. However, a human body wasn't a cauldron and there was no place for the vital chi to overflow. It would normally result in bodies exploding. The marvel of Mute's great furnace was after lending Qinmu 100 times vital chi, these 100 times vital chi would return to the great furnace and not affect his body. Qinmu sprinted forward and his mind was processed quickly. That way with my current cultivation I can also execute divine arts? In that case, it's not like I can't fight the heavenly devil horde. The great furnace that Mute had placed in his body provided him with 100 times vital chi. Such a vigorous vital chi was something Qinmu had never even dared to think of. Previously his fist skills were still fist skills and knife skills were still knife skills. However, now he felt that he could use his 100 times vital chi in his body to execute the divine arts of fist skills and knife skills. How powerful would the abilities that Old Ma and Butcher had imparted to him be like after breaking through into divine arts? His footsteps grew faster and faster as he subconsciously incorporated heaven pilfering leg skill which Cripple had taught him into his sprint, pouring the boundless vital chi in his body into his legs. Qinmu gave a long whistle and his feet took a step out. The air under his feet was compressed under his step and formed a gale. This was the wind formed by his own footsteps. As he took this first step, Qinmu instantly felt that the air was flat ground. Everywhere in the vast sky was flat ground and places he could land his feet. His speed suddenly increased as he traveled in the sky. In just a few steps, he broke free from the gloomy gray fog and appeared in the sky above the gray fog before dashing towards the mountain gates of Fengdu. Suddenly a huge figure leaped up from the gray fog. It was a monster that was blazing with flames and looked like it was formed from lava. Its punch was as heavy as a mountain as it punched towards the sprinting Qin Mu. Qin Mu's hurriedly increased his speed and broke through the air. Suddenly the pig slaughtering knife on his back flew out from its sheath and landed in his hand. Sun on East Sea, thousand-layer waves. Pig slaughtering knife gave off a glorious luster just like a blazing sun leaping up from the East Sea along with 1,000 layers of waves surging forth. Sounds of clashing rang continuously as Qin Mu collided with the colossus and bounced off straight away, returning his knife back into the sheath and sprinted away. Thud 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 thud. Stones fell to the ground and a huge head followed right after. The huge lava giant was broken down by his knife skill. This was the divine art of his knife skill. The lava giant was a powerful divine art practitioner that had immense strength. However, when compared to the divine arts of butcher's knife skills, it was still slightly weaker. Lightning suddenly flashed in the sky as a handsome youth rose up from the gray fog below. Lightning crisscrossed among his hands and his 10 fingers suddenly opened up. The lightning weaved around each other to form a net and struck towards Qin Mu. Divine arts evolved from green dragon vital qi? Can it be stronger than the divine arts from old Ma's fist skill? Qin Mu gave a shout and released a punch. The vital qi in his fist transformed into dragons and formed 45 dragon forces. Tempest of the 9 dragons. The 45 green dragons roared broadly and powerful, swallowing the handsome youth along with lightning flashes and thunder rolls. Both of their fists met and the body of the handsome youth turned stiff. He then exploded with a bang as his flesh turned into 45 red dragons surging out. I'm that strong. Qin Mu jumped in shock. He had seen the power of Tempest of the 9 dragon from Old Ma's hand, but Old Ma was Old Ma after all. It was natural that his attacks were powerful. However, now that Qin Mu had unleashed his fist skills to the level of divine arts, did he realize how astonishing was the power of Thunderclap 8 strikes. However, Tempest of the 9 dragons had created too big of a ruckus, and would definitely allow the heavenly devil horde in the dense fog to pinpoint his location through the sound. Qin Mu immediately heard the sounds of breaking through the air and his heart fell. The numbers of heavenly devil horde that the devil god had sprinkled out just now were too many. If he couldn't be in a favorable location, it would be impossible for him to defend against them. He was getting closer and closer to the mountain gates of Fengdu. Suddenly a pitch-black devil cloud rolled out in front of him and blocked his vision. Qin Mu sighed and immediately halted, dropping back down into the fog. A huge head popped out from the pitch-black devil clouds. The face was filled with a curly mustache and his gaze spewed fire as he looked around. The devil cloud then rapidly shrank. The huge head also shrank together with the devil cloud, and when the devil cloud had shrunk to 3 yards, an ugly woman appeared. Her mouth was filled with yellow teeth that were like thick nails, and on her back was a bloody bottle gourd that was as long as a human. Meanwhile, the shrinking devil cloud continued to tunnel into the mouth of the bottle gourd. Another woman rose into the sky and stood on the gray fog. This woman had pretty facial features, white smooth skin, a fantastic figure, big bust and a skinny waist. However, from her back grew a thick and long scorpion tail which Barb was swinging around. The 2 women looked downwards to search for Qin Mu and didn't find him. Suddenly the swooshing sound of a sharp sword broke through the air, and before the scorpion lady could react, a sword light had come slashing across her neck. The scorpion lady covered her neck and wanted to put her head back on her neck, yet she couldn't help it as her head slid off uncontrollably. This was the most basic sword art that village chief had taught him. Cleave. The ugly woman gave a screech and the devil cloud on her back surged out again. In the devil cloud stood a giant, and even though there was only the upper half of his body, his fists were like mountains as he went smashing ruthlessly down at the direction where the sword had come from. Boom! Dull thumps sounded out as a groan came out from the gray fog. The eyes of the ugly woman lit up and the giant in the devil cloud continued to smash towards that location. After the giant in the devil cloud had punched 100 times, the ugly woman gave a smile as she saw the blood spatters on the giant's fist. She descended down into the gray fog and her feet touched the land. Her spirit weapon was out of the ordinary and was the blood bottle gourd. The giant, with only the upper half of his body from the bloody bottle gourd, was the divine art that she had cultivated from her technique. However, under the nourishment of the bloody bottle gourd, the giant's body had already been refined like steel and iron, having astonishing strength. The ugly woman landed on the ground and walked to the place where the giant had hammered, only to see a corpse which had been smashed in bits. Her expression changed hugely when she saw that it wasn't a human corpse but the corpse of her clansman. At this moment, her heart felt a chill as Junior Protector's sword stabbed through from her back. Behind her, Qin Mu had silently closed in and disappeared back into the gray fog after retrieving his sword. With the layers of dense fog and the heaven-pilfering leg skill Qin Mu had learned from Cripple, it was the perfect place for Qin Mu to assassinate. As he weaved around in the dense fog, he concealed himself and headed towards the sources of sounds, using sword or knife to kill them in one blow. The vast gray fog gradually became thicker and thicker that Qin Mu couldn't see much farther with his 9 heavens god eyes. Suddenly a pitch-black tentacle waved past in front of him and Qin Mu stood there motionlessly to let the tentacle pass him. Chi-chi-chi. A fine sound traveled out as spider silks flew past his body and formed a web. The spider silks trembled as if there was something stepping on the spider silk and stretching it taut, giving off a tune that was like strumming a string instrument. The spider silks grew more and more, gradually enveloping the surroundings of Qin Mu. More tentacles in the fog also flailed around in the air, trying to force him out. Qin Mu frowned and directed his vital qi secretly into his white glove. The thread of the glove secretly popped its head out just like an extremely fine spirit snake. This fine thread clung onto the spider silk in absolute silence and slowly snaked its way forward, crawling from this spider silk onto another spider silk. This white gloves was equivalent to the scriptures of great educational heavenly devil scriptures, and formed by countless of tadpole scripts. It could change its shape and size at will, therefore, Granny weaved this treasure into a glove for Qin Mu to wear. Controlling great educational heavenly devil scriptures, Qin Mu let the fine thread overlap with the spider silk. After some time, the thread of the white gloves on his hand had come off and only 5 fingers were covered. Qin Mu's vital qi moved slightly and his vital qi thread, which was as thick as an arm, pulled out Junior Protector sword. According to the motion of the muscle's trajectory, he deduced the actual location of the tentacle's owner. Putting his fingers together, his left hand suddenly stabbed out and a sword hum instantly came from Junior Protector's sword. The sword stabbed into the gray fog in a flash and a shriek sounded out. At the same time, the spider web trembled and a woman with 8 claws on her back flew towards him on the spider web. The 8 razor-sharp claws stabbed down towards Qin Mu. The 5 fingers on Qin Mu's right hand opened up and with a pull, the entire spider web suddenly rose up and wrapped the 8-claw lady right in the middle. Qin Mu executed his vital qi and great educational heavenly devil scriptures started to shrink and slice the 8-claw lady into pieces. Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and the fine thread of great educational heavenly devil scriptures continued to shrink back into a glove on his hand without any traces of blood. What is the race of these heavenly devil horde? They are like humans yet they aren't humans. They are like demons and yet not demons as well. There were also some like bugs but they aren't completely bugs too. This is really weird. Stepping on the spider web, he continued to walk forward, but he didn't make any sound as Cripple's heaven-pilfering leg skill was truly light. Junior Protector's sword flew back into the mouth of the fish dragon behind him. Qin Mu used his vital qi to maintain the fish dragon form of the sword sheath, so that he was always ready for a fight. He carefully came to the side of the heavenly devil horde who was stabbed to death by Junior Protector's sword to take a look at the body. It had 8 legs but all the 8 legs were long tentacles. That was terrifying. With the fog being so heavy, it isn't a good thing for me however. It isn't any better for the heavenly devil horde. As long they can't swarm me at once, I would be able to save my life. Qin Mu stood in the gray fog and stopped moving. Instead, he listened to any strange sounds in his surrounding. At this moment, his surroundings had suddenly fallen silent and no sound could be heard. Qin Mu picked up a stone and flicked it. The stone landed on the ground and other than the loud and clear rolling sound of the stone, there was no other movement. He waited for a while before flicking out another stone and there was still no movement. Qin Mu finally gave a sigh of relief. The heavenly devil horde must have all been killed by me. It should be safe now. Suddenly a gale blew through the valley, dispersing the gray fog that had saturated the air. Looking clearly at his surroundings, Qin Mu's scalp couldn't help turning numb. Around him actually stood an extremely high number of heavenly devil horde. There were several hundred of them. When he was standing there motionlessly, these hundreds of heavenly devil horde were also standing motionlessly in the gray fog, waiting for him to give the game away. However, Qin Mu totally didn't expect so many people to be standing around him. He leaped into the sky and traveled through the air on the gale. The instant he rose into the air, the hundreds of heavenly devil horde also moved in unison to pounce on the youth in the sky. These hundreds of heavenly devil horde were also divine arts practitioners, and there were 8 kinds of heavenly devil horde. The first kind was the fish scales mutant that Qin Mu had seen. The second kind was the lava giant. The 3 kind was the handsome youth, while the 4th kind was the ugly woman. The 5th kind was the lady that had a human appearance and a scorpion tail. The 6th kind was a woman with 8 claws, and the 7th kind was the mutant with 8 tentacles. The 8th kind was a mutant with 2 huge snakes as arms. At this moment, the hundreds of heavenly devil horde pounced into the air in unison, and all the various exotic divine arts and strange body parts attacked towards Qin Mu at the same time. With all the attacks being so densely packed together, it was impossible for him to defend against them. Qin Mu's hair stood on ends as he knew he couldn't defend in time under such a situation. At this moment, Buddha aura burst forth from the heart of his brows, and a great Buddha leaped out. Om Mani Padme Hum. The great Buddha put his palms together and his aura burst forth like rings. Countless of severed limbs flew in all directions as the hurricane battered and wiped out all of the heavenly devil horde. The Buddha aura gradually faded, and the apparition of the great Buddha in front of Qin Mu also faded before disappearing entirely. That was the apparition of the great Buddha old Ma had placed in the heart of his brows. It would only burst forth when he encountered a life-threatening danger, and could only be used once. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and was slightly stumped for words. Why was there a sudden gale which blew the gray fog away? If it wasn't for that gale, I wouldn't have been found by those heavenly devil horde. Now he noticed the source of the gale. It was from Moon's ship. The Colossus actually slowly got up. Because this ship was simply too big, even much bigger than Border Dragon City, it had raised a gale which dispersed the gray fog when it slowly got up. Sun ship requires Sun Guardian to control to be able to move. Could it be that there's a Moon Guardian on Moon ship? If there's still a Moon Guardian guarding Moon ship, there might be my clansmen on board. Qin Mu's spirit stirred. It was then he saw black smoke as thick as a pillar from the temple in the closest city to Moon ship. It was evident that they had detected the ruckus made over here. Without further thought, Qin Mu immediately rushed out of the mountain gates of Fengdu. With all his strength he sprinted to the other end of the mountains. Cripple's heaven-pilfering divine legs was unleashed by him without restraint. He became extremely quick, like flickering light and passing shadows. There was an abnormal movement from Moon's ship, therefore. It meant there was someone on board controlling it. However, he was in a precarious situation now, thus he couldn't go investigate. He sprinted past a few mountains and the sea of fog once again appeared in his sights. Qin Mu was about to rush over when a suction force came from below, sucking away the air under the feet and caused him to fall from the sky immediately. Crash! Smoke and dust permeated the air and Qin Mu had smashed a big pit into the ground. As the youth slowly got himself up from the pit, he realized he had landed in the village which he had first met after coming ashore. At this moment, people in the village put down what they were busy with and stood up. They all stared at him peculiarly. What had made the wind under his feet vanished was the bellows which a blacksmith-looking person was holding. Human skin was draped over piston edges to form an air sac, and had a spring inside to spring it open after compressing it to suck air. The nozzle of the bellows was a human head. The blacksmith-looking person was holding onto the 2 handles. It was him who had used the bellows to suck the air under Qin Mu's feet, making him fall uncontrollably. In front of the straw hut next door, a plump auntie who was chopping dumpling fillings stood up with 2 kitchen knives on her hands which were still dripping blood. Behind Qin Mu, a man who was pounding grains of rice also stopped and took out the pestle from the mortar. Under the pestle was a hammer as big as a crock which was dripping blood. In the stone mortar was a human head. At the back of the village, a tailor was cutting fabrics which were human skins. The tailor stood up while holding scissors in one hand and a measuring ruler on the other. The assistant at the dye workshop was also hanging up fabrics he had just dyed, and fished them out from the huge cauldron which was filled with blood. As the dye workshop's assistant saw Qin crashing down, he put down the human skin on his hand and wiped his bloody hands in front of his chest. A child that was squatting in front of a house and eating spit out a finger bone which flesh had been cleanly eaten. The white and chubby pig snorted as it walked past with a ghastly white arm in its mouth. The elder at the village entrance was also smoke a tobacco pipe made from human bone. Every smoke he puffed out would form a skull shape which would give off mournful screams before dispersing. More villagers appeared in front and behind of Qin, blocking his path to advance and his path to retreat. Behind Qin, the fish dragon spat out his sword and his left hand held his knife in a reverse grip. Suddenly the vital qi in his body turned frantic and rushed into the painting death drawn on him with dragon blood. Instantly a terrifying strength flooded to his entire body, filling him up with the power of a dragon. At the same time, Def's painting made him feel like he was currently a god. Even though he was now in a skeleton form, it was a facade. His flesh and skin were still there, just that it couldn't be seen or touched. When village chief had told him to reopen the 9 heavens of his god eyes, he had realized this point. At this moment, Def's painting was awakened by him, and he felt an immensely powerful strength coursing through his body. His vital qi also rose furiously. As the incomparably vigorous vital qi overflowed from his body, it turned into a huge python coiling around him. His aura rose dramatically as concentrated water vapors suddenly rose under his feet and turned into great waves. In the great waves, a black tortoise was faintly discernible. He was now like a god which possessed powers without boundary. He felt that it was as if he had become a god that could control water, being able to change the rivers with a raise of a hand. Slaughter his way out of the village. There was only this thought in Qin mind. He had to slaughter his way out of this village no matter what. Rip, rip, rip. Around his came the sound of human skins ripping. The skins on the villagers' bodies ripped apart as tall and sturdy bodies squeezed out from the skins. These people in the village weren't human and were heavenly devil horde. The children, women and even the pig had all changed their forms and turned into divine arts practitioners of heavenly devil horde. There were some who had even awakened their 7 stars divine treasure. Only the elder who was smoking the tobacco pipe made from human bones remained sitting at the village entrance and didn't transform. Die! Qin shouted and rushed towards the village entrance. The moment he started to rush out, all the heavenly devil horde suddenly moved and attacked him. Both of Qin hands swung around. Huge waves overflowing to the heavens surged forth between his hands with a rumble. The vast and mighty river was like the impact of a huge python, sweeping up all the heavenly devil horde that were swarming from all directions. With a flick of the huge python's tail, the houses were shattered into pieces by the huge flood reaching the heavens. Qin sword finger stabbed out and his junior protector sword flew into the long river and stabbed towards the heavenly devil horde which had been swept into the river. He executed all the basic sword forms that village chief had imparted to him, and every strike was extremely close to perfection. The long river was instantly dyed red by the blood and became a huge red river. Corpses floated inside the huge river, and those were the heavenly devil horde he had slaughtered. Beneath Qin feet, a wave whooshed up and a black tortoise appeared as it carried him up and down the river and towards the village entrance. Behind him, the entire village had been razed to the ground, and after the flood subsided, all that was left was a ground filled with corpses. At the village entrance, the elder who was smoking the human bone tobacco pipe finally had a change in his expression. He turned around to face Qin who had an overbearing presence as he rode the surging waves over, and came crashing down with an earth-shattering pressure. A current, if fast enough, would be able to shatter everything, slice everything and destroy everything. That's the marvel of Black Tortoise Vital Qi. Using Black Tortoise Vital Qi to control water, as long as the speed of the water reaches 150 yards in an instant, it would be able to slice through steel. If it lands on a person, the person would definitely split in half and there's nothing it can't destroy. Qin rode the cusp of the wave as he crashed towards the elder with an overbearing presence. Activating Def's painting with the dragon precious blood plus the great furnace that Mute had hidden in his body, Qin had confidence that he could take on anybody. At the village entrance, The elder smoking the human bone tobacco pipe raised his hand and collided with the almighty Long River. The entire Long River was slithering forward like a huge python collapsing, and turned into huge puddles of water that splattered everywhere. At the same time, the elder's 2 fingers gently pinched and stopped the momentum of Junior Protector's sword that was stabbing out. "Did you find Carefree Village?" The elder chuckled. Right at the instant, the elder pinched Junior Protector's sword. Qin Mu's palm had already gripped onto the sword's hilt and he stabbed forward with all the strength in his body. The elder's power was beyond his expectation. However, with his 9 heaven god eyes, he could see the change in strength in the elder's body. When the elder raised his hand to block the Long River and pinched the sword tip, his strength had already reached its limit. Now with the addition of Qin Mu's body strength, it would surpass the limit which he could defend against. The dragon's precious blood and death's painting raised the strength of his physical power to its maximum. Therefore his strength that could be unleashed by his body wasn't any weaker than his violent magic power. As the sword stabbed out, the elder instantly had a change in expression. His fingers weren't able to pinch the tip of the sword and his palm was pierced by Junior Protector, which continued to stab into his chest. "Let me send you to Carefree Village now, old man." Power burst forth beneath Qin Mu's feet as he pushed Junior Protector's sword into the elder. The elder was originally sitting but now he had to plant both his legs into the ground. Even so he was unable to defend against Qin Mu's astonishing power and both of his legs created 2 lines of deep pits in the ground. Clang! The elder's other hand raised his human bone tobacco pipe and smacked it heavily on Junior Protector's sword. Qin Mu's arm turned numb from the tremors and he immediately let go of the sword. Sweeping the sword up with his vital qi, he swung the sword horizontally in an arc and sliced towards the elder's neck. Wave sword form. His sword skill had received village chief's guidance and even though it was a simple stab, wave and flick, its power was extremely terrifying. That elder immediately evaded but Junior Protector's sword continued to swing around in an arc and closed in on his neck. Thus he could only continue to retreat. If he retreats any further, he would have to retreat to the boundary stone that marks the living realm of the dead. At the same time, the splattered water once again rose up and whooshed over from all directions like huge pythons as they coiled around the elder. Suddenly, the human bone tobacco pipe flew out from the elder's hand and blocked Junior Protector's sword. At the same time, dense smoke billowed out from the tobacco pipe and formed skulls which cackled weirdly as they flew towards Qin Mu, tunneling into his body to try to tear his soul apart. Sealing his soul using heavenly devil nature technique, Qin Mu let the skulls formed by the smoke nibble and tear at his soul freely, but they couldn't do it no matter what. Taking a deep breath, he suddenly blew out a gale. Whoosh! The fog as well as the skulls were all dispersed by his breath. Even though he hadn't learned another wind control spells or divine arts, his current cultivation that had been forcefully boosted by deaf and mute reached an unimaginable height. Therefore even his breath could become a spell divine art. The tobacco pipe collided with Junior Protector's sword and sparks shot out. Those sparks instantly turned into flaming red lava as they flew into Qin Mu's face. Qin Mu shuffled his footsteps and dodged the incoming lava and increased the intensity of his attacks. The huge pythons formed by the water coiled around the elder and countless of water swords came stabbing towards the elder. The elder's tobacco pipe bowl suddenly became huge like a big black pot covering down. A powerful suction force came out and sucked away all the water. However, it also extinguished the fire inside the tobacco pipe. Qin Mu's body closed in like a phantom and flailed his arms. Whether it was a palm or a fist, he frantically attacked the elder like thousand-armed Buddha. His fist skill changed suddenly as it had knife light hidden within, and by pairing it with his irregular footsteps, it made his attacks impossible to defend. The elder had no choice but to continuously retreat. His strength was even higher than Qin Mu, but Qin Mu's body and feet movement, as well as his fist and knife skills, were unpredictably strange. Especially Junior Protector's sword, which was so sharp that even his tobacco pipe couldn't withstand it. The moves that this sword had executed were all incomparably simple, but it was extremely effective. It had fast speed, enough strength and could repeatedly break through his tobacco pipe's defense while aiming at his weakness. Qin Mu was like a sword skill expert. Even though the sword moves were plain and crude, it made him appear like an effortless expert. It was very intractable and he had no choice but to retreat. The simplest sword moves that village chief had taught combined with Blind's 9 heavens god eyes. He had succeeded in every strike. The elder moved another step back, and was suddenly startled as he saw a boundary stone at the corner of his eye. The boundary stone of the living realm of the dead. Raising his knife and pushing forward, he leaned forward and had to swing his knife upwards, causing the elder to have no choice but to retreat. With his foot moving back, the flesh on his entire body vanished and he turned into white bones. And with a step forward, Qin Mu crossed over the living realm of the dead and his flesh instantly came back. Without another word, the elder immediately turned and left, jumping into the sea of fog. With his flesh back, Qin Mu's body strength would increase, and with the elder's flesh disappearing, his strength would decrease. With the imbalance of strength now, he could only retreat. Qin Mu sighed of relief. This elder was extremely powerful. If they continued to fight on like this, when the time comes where the dragon's precious blood loses its effect, it would be Qin Mu's death. Walking to the dock, the sea of fog was boundless and no end could be seen. There was a faint lantern light shining from the sea of fog. Can village chief make it in time? Qin Mu turned his head back to have a look and saw gloomy devil clouds from the living realm of the dead continuously swarming here. It was obvious that the strong practitioners in the city had been activated and came forth to investigate. It wouldn't be long for the surging devil clouds to make their way here. Qin Mu waited for a moment and the boat with a lantern had come. Yet village chief still wasn't here. The devil clouds were already very close, and if he still doesn't leave, he won't have the chance to anymore. Taking out a fengdu coin, Qin Mu smacked the coin into a wooden pillar on the dock and boarded the tiny boat. The boatman wearing the woven coat rowed his boat and moved towards the sea of fog. Qin Mu stood on the bow of the boat to look back, but when he still didn't see village chief, his heart sunk. The devil clouds had surged the village and soon reached the dock. However, the small boat has sailed into the fog, vanishing without a trace. Village chief is so strong, therefore he will definitely come back safely. Qin Mu consoled himself and sat down under the boat's lantern. He took down Junior Protector's sword from his back and placed it horizontally on his knees, looking quietly at the fog surging in front. The power in Def's painting had already started to fade, and the effect of the dragon's precious blood was also fading. The great furnace gradually turned dull and was about to go off. The small boat moved forward unhurriedly and slowly went further and further. Suddenly, the fog under the boat surged upwards as a white skeleton in tattered clothes leaped up from the sea of fog and pounced towards Qin Mu. Qin Mu seemed to be already expecting him, and the moment the skeleton's head popped out from the sea of fog, Junior Protector's sword on his knees was already raised. Cleave sword form. Qin Mu continued to sit up and looked forward as he swung his sword in a horizontal cleave. The white skeleton in clothes hurriedly took out his human bone tobacco pipe to defend, but he couldn't block against this breathtaking cleave in time. Junior Protector's sword cleaved his neck before he could even raise his tobacco pipe. With a flash, his head swayed and dropped into the sea of fog while his body remained on the boat. Still standing on its feet, the skeleton body had a pouncing pose, but there was no strength in it anymore. "I've long waited for you. I was always looking at you who was under the boat." Qin Mu put his sword back into his sheath. The 9 heavens formation markings in his god eyes were gradually fading away as well. The power from Dragon's precious blood and Def's painting were also rapidly vanishing as he said to the headless skeleton, "When you were sneaking into the sea of fog and following the ship, it was all in my eyes. I was waiting for the moment you send yourself to me and let me kill you." The white skeleton seemed to suddenly lose its strength and collapsed on the floor, separating into bones. Qin Mu looked at the human bone tobacco pipe and hesitated for a moment. He then threw the shattered bones and the tobacco pipe overboard. This tobacco pipe was a good treasure as it could withstand so many strikes from Junior Protector's sword, and belonged to an extremely high category spirit weapon. However, he didn't like it because it was made from human bones. That's why he threw it away. "Village chief, you definitely have to be safe." The youth sat back under the lantern and continued to place the sword at his knees, muttering to himself. The small boat sailed past the White Bones Mountains and towards the entrance of this incredible place. In the living realm of the dead, a whirlpool suddenly appeared in the sky. It was split in half by a stunning sword light as village chief slaughtered his way out from the whirlpool where blood kept on flowing. The blood-colored whirlpool hung in the sky as blood flowed out continuously. It looked as if the sky was bleeding. Turning back, village chief moved his 10 fingers and sword light shot out from his fingertips. The sword lights nailed the whirlpool and sealed it up. Blood continued to flow from the whirlpool, and there seemed to be a huge monster inside attacking the entrance of the whirlpool furiously. However, it was blocked by village chief's sword light and couldn't rush out in a short while. Village chief sighed of relief and immediately headed towards the mountain gate of Fengdu. He was about to fly past the mountain gate when he suddenly halted and saw a bird-head mutant with 2 wings. It was standing on one leg and had the other leg hidden under its feathers.